for tuning in to TalkWad.com, the world's fastest growing internet radio network. Please check out all the other great shows on www.talkwad.com.
And now, live from TalkWad Studios in Tampa, Florida, it's Affairs of Your Heart with your hosts, Easy-E and CC. And welcome to Affairs of Your Heart on this Sunday afternoon and St. Patrick's Day. I'm your host, Easy-E, and to my left is Leprechaun CC.
Oh, well, I thought we'd have some fun. So I've got my little earrings going.
Yeah, show our listeners those earrings.
I'll take off my little thing so you can see my little ears going and everything.
Right. Little flasher on you.
I'm a little flasher today, that's for sure. I got my beads going, So all you Irish people out there, just let's have a ball today. Let's have a great time.
Right, on St. Patty's Day. A lot of people get out there for St. Patty's Day and they're after the green beer. I've always been just looking for the pot at the end of the rainbow.
Well, that's the trouble. You drink too much of that green beer, you stumble, you can't get to that,
If I could ever latch onto that pot at the end of the rainbow, it really would be St. Patty's Day.
But
for
you
me.
have that pot already. Come on. You do. You know what? There's so much more than just, the financial gain of things. You've got a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, the
going
gold in life that we pick up. We fill our own pots, I guess.
That's right.
We do fill our own pots along the way.
Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, we do fill our own pots. So welcome to Affairs of Your Heart. Again, we want to thank TalkWad Studios, TalkWad Network for allowing us to have this show, not only our show, but a show for you, our listeners. We're excited today, particularly because we're taking another step forward in trying to help out with the dating and relationships arena by having a discussion today on people who are emotionally unavailable or people who you run into that are emotionally unavailable. And that's something that, as we mentioned before, CC hosts another show on Wednesdays, Going Solo, Life After Divorce. And that's also a topic that pertains to a lot of divorce. So we're going to see a lot of similarities as we go along, talking about the dating and relationships and the divorced people as well.
Right, absolutely. As we move in through to the dating, transition into dating, the majority of the individuals that are dating have had to recover from some sort of relationship loss, whether it be, by death, divorce, or separation, or whatever. So they're out there and they've had their past. There's things that they've had to endure. So that's got them to where they're at now. So we have to understand that.
Right. As we talked about building here on this show in the past 2-3 weeks, we talked about the importance of self-love and self-identifying the good things about you, putting those things forward, and for men in particular, being able to verbalize the good things about their character, not so much their possessions, but about their character. And that's what women tend to have a better ability in doing that. They're very big because they spend a lot of time talking to one another about a lot of those things, whereas men, we fall short sometimes in the language of love, but we're getting better. We're getting better, as you heard from some of our callers. This is a live call-in show, so feel free to call us with any questions. Our call-in number is 813-235-0644. from 5:30 to 6:30 for this show. And again, as always, you can reach us by email. Our email addresses is mine is EZE, as it sounds, eze.affairs@gmail.com. And CC, of course, is cece.affairs@gmail.com.
Right, and we answer those. So
Yes.
anytime you have any, you want to send us anything, a question or anything like that, we'll definitely take your advice and use it for the show and topics for the show. And of course, we will honor and respect, who they're coming from and not disclose any type of personal information about you, but use the facts and the information that you've provided us. So most certainly.
Right. So feel free to send us some emails or feel free to give us a call today. I'm particularly excited today, Cece. We're going to have a...
Don't be telling me your secrets.
I'm excited today. We're taking a step forward, and as we mentioned, we're here. We're your hosts. We're only the hosts of this show and trying to help you identify some things, and we ourselves are going to be learning along with you and helping to bridge that gap in dating and relationships. And the first one we're going to start out the box with is, as I mentioned, people who are emotionally unavailable. Sometimes we don't recognize the signs within ourselves, but we give off all the signs to somebody else that we're emotionally unavailable. And also what happens when you run into somebody who is emotionally unavailable. As we're not the experts in those areas, but we told you we would do the legwork, and we are having an expert that's going to talk to us in a little bit around all those areas. So please stay tuned for that, because I think she's going to impart some excellent information to us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell you what, anybody that's been out there dating has certainly come across this. And sometimes I wonder if we not only feel that ourselves, because as we're going through, we're saying, okay, we've gone through this, whatever the relationship loss is, and we've gone through the transition of dating. We've done our work on ourselves, and we're thinking, okay, we're ready now to start dating. But then when we start dating, then wow, it hits us.
Things fall apart. Things fall apart, and the blame game happens, and it's a variety of things, and a lot of it starts with where we're at in life, and that's why today's show is going to be so important, because maybe we think we're ready and we're not ready, or you're running into somebody that you think it sounds like a good person, you can have a relationship with you, but they're doing everything wrong. And that's when you really have to step back and realize what's happening with that individual as well.
Right, absolutely, because maybe you're being a little bit too picky.
Yeah.
Maybe you're trying to find fault in them and not giving them a chance. So, and if you're going through a lot of individuals, you're dating a lot of people, and you're just going through them one after another, then the thing is they can't all be bad. They can't all be wrong. Right. So, you need to really stop for a minute and look at yourself and what you're doing. Are you attracting maybe the person that isn't correct for you, but are you really shooting it down before, it's like that, that game that you see, where you're shooting the ducks and they fall over,
right.
And I think sometimes when you're dating, you're doing that same thing. You're shooting that dating guy and he's falling down, and, say he wants to come up and you just keep shooting him down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's as we talk about a lot of this, it really is a difficult thing, and that not only pertains to dating and relationships, but in life as general, identifying what issues you have and being honest with yourself about those issues.
Right.
That's a difficult thing for everyone to do. We tend to gloss over or tend never to look to see whether we may be the issues. It's always something else that's contributing to it, and it takes a real strong person that wants to change their life, to change things from continually to occur the way they are, to really sit back and start taking a look at these things.
Absolutely. We are human, and so we're not perfect by no means. And so definitely, to really better a relationship, have a better relationship, you do really have to work from within. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know in that arena, that's why your other show is so important, because divorce is something I readily admit that hit me hard, and that's when it happens, if you're a caring person and you care to improve yourself, you really have to take some honest looks at things you did wrong.
Absolutely.
And be honest with yourself, and that's a hard area. You can lose a job and justify it, and you can have other things that justify it, but when it's a relationship that involves marriage or children and it goes awry, whether you were at fault or not, you really have to sit back and take a look at yourself.
Well, if you stop for a minute, your heart travels throughout, it functions throughout your entire body. And when your heart is broken or you've got, an arrow in your heart, it's just going to affect you all the way around.
Right.
And it's not easy to mend that. That's something that takes time and a lot of energy and a great deal of soul searching.
Yeah, right.
So it's not, it's if you just think about it like that with regards to, your blood and everything is pumping through your heart. And if you've got a hole there in your heart, it's just going to take some time to do it. And you have to really, really focus on it.
Right. That's why, as I mentioned, today's guest is so vital to our learning some things, because therapy in many areas, I know we all struggle. Who feels comfortable going to a therapist? Who feels comfortable asking for help? Those are some tough areas, and I just commend the effort that they're out there doing to try to help people bridge the gaps in numerous areas.
Well, a long time ago, it used to be if you went to some sort of counselor or a therapist, you were crazy.
Yeah, you're right.
You were really
Very true.
off your block. But in today's world, in today's society, all the things that we have to overcome and deal with, it is a blessing to have, a therapist or a counselor that you can talk with. And they're so readily available to you. So, there are various different, expertise, to cover certain things that you're having situations with or problems with. It doesn't mean you're crazy anymore.
Yeah, that's
right. It just means that you have a problem that you might need a little bit of clearing of your mind. You might need to change your mindset on something. And you'll hear me say that repeatedly about changing your mindset, looking at things differently.
Right.
And that's really what it's all about. So I think the lady we're going to have on today, I think she's really going to help a lot of people out there.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get into today's show, emotional unavailability. In doing research, which I enjoy doing on these topics.
And let me tell you, he does it. He drives me cuckoo-luckoo.
I came up with, let me see if I can pull it up here on the screen for you, came up with some initial signs of things that could possibly go awry, or some of the signs of emotional unavailability. These were just some things I came up with. But one of the constant themes was a controlling person, a person who doesn't listen well because it's always about their opinion. Perfection seekers is another one. And like I said, we're going to get into some of these things when we talk to our caller in just a little bit. But these are just some of the things that hopefully she'll be able to shed some light on. So without further ado, the person we're about to call today is a local person, so I'm very happy about that. Her name is Linda Peterman, and Linda Peterman is a counselor here in the Tampa area, so she will be available for us to follow up with from time to time. She's a graduate of Southern Florida. She's been practicing for well over 15 years in a variety of areas, and she is a licensed mental health counselor and also a rehabilitation counselor. So she has a wealth of background in a variety of areas, not only dating and relationships, but several other areas that we'll discuss with her. She also is an author, and she's published some books, as well as being a guest speaker in this area. So we're very fortunate to have somebody with that expertise to talk to us, and we're going to ask her some questions that we think you, our listeners, might want to know of, and then we're just going to ask her for some basic understanding and what does she see in talking to people. What are some of the top 3 or 4 signs of being able to identify it? So let's see if we can get Ms. Peterson on the line. Hello, Ms. Peterson?
Yeah, I don't know if we're having a little bit of trouble with it.
Okay.
We
may have not reached this. Ms. Peterson?
Oh, here we go.
Hi,
Hello.
Good afternoon. This is Easy and CC with Affairs of Your Heart.
Hi, nice to see you. Nice to hear you.
Yes, we appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. As I mentioned to you, we wanted to discuss people who basically are emotionally unavailable, not only in the context of themselves, identifying if they're emotionally unavailable, but also how to identify those signs in the other areas. And we'd like to begin, if you could at least tell our listening audience a little bit more about yourself and your practice that you have.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yes, my name's Linda Peterman, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor and a life coach. And I've been assisting people with their relationships and communication styles and self-esteem and other issues for over 15 years. I have a private practice in the West Chase area of Tampa, and I really enjoy just helping people get healthier, intimate relationships and being able to, create them, find new ones, and keep ones that are really working for them.
Right. And so you counsel in a variety of areas. Ms. Peterman, I did some research online, and I'd like to initially begin this discussion with something that I guess personally I had not considered. But if you could expand a little bit with our listeners as far as what is your view of emotional unavailability, and how do you think it starts in people? I guess one of the questions I have initially when I began looking at it, they said often it is based upon something that has happened to an individual in the past that could have got them to that position. Do you agree with that?
Yes, basically I do agree with that. Being emotionally available is about being physically and emotionally present for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
It is about being able to be there for that person in whether it's phone calls, coming to something that's important to them, being on time, keeping your word. In other words, just knowing that you have their back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's someone who will put the relationship first. You have to have someone who's willing to make that relationship a priority as well. And someone who wants it to be an important, strong, and long-lasting part of their relationship. And if we don't have that, if we don't feel like we have someone who can really be physically and emotionally present for us, then our trust and our security is going to be broken.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two of the biggest foundations, of a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And some people aren't emotionally healthy, and you had asked me that then, well, why? What happens? And you're right about we've been in other relationships. And we've been in other relationships from the time we were children. That first intimate relationship we've ever had was with our parents.
Mm-hmm.
And any of these past relationships, beginning from childhood throughout adulthood, we could have had partners who were uninvolved in our lives, who were critical, who were absent, who were abusive, who were controlling. And in those cases, we become wounded, and we become hurt, and we become scared.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes us very wary to get into other relationships with people and to get that close again. It's fear.
Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Fear of closeness.
Fear, well, I mean, you have a great deal of different types of fear, but you do have, it mainly comes down to fear, right? Don't you agree? May I call you Linda? May I
Yes,
call you
please
Linda?
call
Thank
me
you.
Linda.
Thank you
Yes,
very much.
absolutely, Stacey. You're
Yes.
right. It does come down to fear, and there's fear about a lot of things. I'm afraid of being hurt, but I'm also afraid of being vulnerable. I'm afraid of being disappointed. I'm afraid of being inadequate. I'm afraid of taking a risk and being hurt again. So there's a lot of fear of not being good enough. So now we're getting into being insecure and not being confident. And when that is going on with someone, they're going to be very reluctant to be assertive and to come into a relationship taking care of themselves. And we really need two people that are going to come into this relationship ready to take care of themselves and each other.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, do you think people are able, they identify that within themselves? Are they aware that they're possibly emotionally unavailable?
Not always. Absolutely not always. I certainly have my share of people coming in the office who may think they are and ends up they're not. Others who definitely recognize they're not, and they actually come in for some help with that, saying, I've gotten out of this other relationship, or I lost this other relationship, and I know I need to do some self-improvement here. I know I'm not good at communicating. I know I'm not good at listening to that other person well either. And so that they will come in sometimes with an awareness And many times people may come into this relationship believing that they are being a good partner because they are giving into the other person.
Right.
They are allowing that other person, to kind of take control. And by being that kind and loving, caring person and letting them have what they want, I'm starting to lose myself now, and I'm not taking care of myself. And people sometimes don't recognize that often enough, that they're not being assertive. And without them doing that, they aren't going to be healthy themselves, and then they won't begin a healthy, equal relationship.
Right. Now, how do we turn that around, though? If we find that we are feeling like that and we are experiencing some of those things, what can we do as, individuals to try to, because we do want someone in our lives. I mean, if we're out there dating, we do consciously acknowledge that we want someone in our lives, but we are basically pushing other people away from us. Mm-hmm. We're pushing them away from us. So how do we, if we start to realize, okay, we must be doing something incorrectly, we must be having buried feelings or something like this, how can we as individuals turn that around?
Well, I think, as you said, the first thing earlier is we need to look at ourselves first. And in past relationships, I can look at what went wrong and what was my role, what was my responsibility in things that went wrong in that relationship. And how can I be a better partner? And sometimes it would be something as simple as, I'm not confident. I'm not very self-assured. I don't stick up for myself. And if that's the case and I don't know how to do that, I can go and seek help and get the tools and the techniques and the skills, perhaps through a counselor or a life coach, and find what it takes to be able to take care of myself. And as I become a person who can do those behaviors, it makes me more confident. Mm-hmm. So again, the more I stand up and I'm assertive, and that really means I can tell someone, this is how I feel, and there's those feelings again, like the emotional part that we're looking for, how I feel. And I can tell someone what I want and what I need and what I desire. And as I do that, I begin to feel more confident and have more self-esteem. And I'm going to be a more attractive partner as well when I am confident and self-assured. And I have that self-respect.
One thing that comes to my mind, and to be perfectly frank on this show, because we're really trying to help our listeners, what do you find the differences in that area between men and women? Because men sometimes aren't expressive enough in that areas, but maybe their signs are giving off, like, personally, just initially, I would say a man that goes from woman to woman to woman in and out of those relationships could very well be somebody who's emotionally uncommitted and unavailable, and that's why he does that. He doesn't want too close a ties of an attachment. And how do you get a man, in a sense, to recognize that that's what they're doing?
Well, you're absolutely right, but it can certainly be, and it is, men and women who will go through these different phases of being, emotionally unavailable. And some of them will get out of a relationship too quickly. They'll move on to the next one. And the reason why they leave usually doesn't have anything to do with the other person, but the reason they leave is because it is getting too intimate. It's getting too close, and now it's getting uncomfortable to them. When it's too intimate, I'm getting uncomfortable because I'm feeling vulnerable. And so what anybody needs to do, male or female, start to trust themselves. Start to trust that they are a good person. They have the capability of being a loving partner, that they have something to offer, that they have love that they can give, and that they are capable of receiving love. And as they do that, they can learn to trust themselves and trust other people and start to open up and communicate in a very honest, willing form where they can self-disclose instead of running. And the running, again, goes back to the fear.
Right. Now, what would you say if you are in a relationship and you feel that you're doing everything that you can, and you're moving forward, but you're seeing your partner, your potential partner, you're seeing that things are, closing down. You have to kind of set your boundaries, and you have to decide that, what steps you're going to be taking. For instance, we had I had an email from someone who had, where they felt like the partner wasn't claiming them, that wasn't acknowledging that they'd been dating for a while, but the partner would never, said that they were in a relationship. And sometimes they would go out and people would be wondering, that they're a couple. Are you a couple? Are you, they're wondering, well, you guys are you guys together? And that would bother the individual that had written in. And what would you say about something like that? I mean, how can you approach and change that if you want to try to hang on to the relationship, or is it too much of a, is there a real big problem there?
That is a great question, because that is a problem. That is a big sign, is when someone doesn't call you something as far as a title.
Mm-hmm.
When someone doesn't acknowledge you and isn't proud to say, this is my partner, or this is our status. If they're not actually claiming you, then they don't feel a part of you. They're really not telling themselves or you or other people that I want to be a part of this person's life. And so we all have to be brave enough once in a while. We all will have these situations at some time in our lives with a relationship where we have to be brave enough to get out. We have to be brave enough. You use the word boundary, which is a great word, but sometimes boundaries are just moving it so far that I actually leave the relationship. I can't settle if I'm not getting what I want from that person. I'm not going to change them. I am not going to change them. I can't love them so much that they're going to change. I need to just know when to leave.
But the
and
point
there
is,
are those that aren't capable of being in a healthy relationship. Maybe it's because at this moment, because I am damaged and I am hurt, and maybe I'm too needy myself at this moment. But we have to recognize when people aren't capable of being in one.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say. Shouldn't they love us for who we are, and that come freely and willingly,
Yes.
And if you don't feel that,
and I think one of the hardest things for me to help people understand in the office is to say to them, you have to ask yourself, is this person willing, able, or capable of giving you what you want? Because a lot of the time, it's not about you. It's not that you're not funny enough, and you're not smart enough, and you're not successful enough, and you're not worthy of it. It's about them. That for whatever reason, they're not capable or willing to give it to you.
Absolutely.
And we can all, look at certain signs of those people who probably will not be able to before we even get into a relationship. And, some of those people are people who are still in love with someone else. Whether this person is still in a relationship with them or even around anymore, if they're in love with someone else, they are not available to you. People who also perhaps, for instance, just as another example, if they are an active addict, they are going to be in love with their substance of choice. They are not going to be able to put the relationship as a priority. They're just not going to be able to do it right now. And those are the kinds of things that we have to start being aware of.
Right, absolutely. I had another email where the problem is that creating this space, it's like everything was going well, but when it came to joining, like households, they wouldn't create a space for them in there. And that's kind of similar, I guess, but but by not creating the space was also, I guess limiting how much you're vesting, in the relationship.
In the relationship, right.
Right. And so it's still probably back to trust. I can't quite trust you to let you in all the way. and to move those boundaries a little bit, because moving the boundaries just a little bit is allowing you to come into my life and into my life close enough to really know you and for you to know me. Going both ways. And it's being vulnerable. We have to be vulnerable when we let people in. We're taking a risk every time we get into a relationship. We're taking a risk that this other person is going to get to know us. And we don't know how they're going to react to it.
Okay.
We don't know if they're going to like it. So we are taking a risk with rejection. And that's hard for a lot of people. It's so very difficult to let them in because I am so afraid of criticism. And I am so afraid of thinking that I'm not good enough.
I remember you raise a lot of very good points, Linda. I remember way back in the day, and I can think of several situations where my soapbox was I felt like I was being smothered in a relationship, like they wanted too much of me, too much of my time, and I kind of really looked at that. How much are you bothering me about? How often do I have to call type of things? And that, and as I grew older, I really looked at it. Didn't have anything to do with them. It had a lot to do with myself. Like he said, after a divorce, feeling vulnerable and letting somebody else in. So it was easier to say, well, they're smothering me. I can't have that type of thing.
Yeah, I've heard of men saying, calling, and women too. I've heard them saying needy. They're too needy.
Right.
Well,
right. And it made, in all fairness, some people are too needy because they may not be very healthy either. So they're not able to take care of themselves emotionally, but they want someone else to. But then again, that can be also the excuse that, oh, you're too needy, because I'm in a place where I can't give you what you need. And as a partner in a relationship, I have a responsibility to give you what you need. Now, I'm not going to be capable of doing it every day, every moment, of course, and that's unhealthy. That's not balanced. People need to take care of themselves as well. But there is a big difference of blaming somebody for being too needy, but actually it could be you, and you're just not capable of giving someone what they need.
I have just another question. In your experience, if you were to have a couple come in and you clearly have identified that both of them have unemotional availability issues, where would you suggest they start at? What would you say to them to help them identify something like that?
Well, some of it depending on what those issues are and where they're from. Sometimes, again, they're going to be from childhood issues. They could be from a past relationship, or they could have nothing to do with past relationships at all, but just about their own personality or some of their own perhaps weaknesses, or maybe again back to the issue of being insecure. And I would probably recognize at one point then that they each, or at least one of them who's ever really struggling, has some individual counseling. And the reason I'll say that is it takes two healthy, happy individual people to be able to come together and be in a healthy, happy, intimate relationship.
Right.
And so we have to start there somewhere, where both people can stand on their own 2 feet, being a very healthy person that comes into a relationship willing to give and willing to receive.
Absolutely.
Willing to bend for the other, and some people do successfully, are able to do that. But, as Linda mentioned, a lot of it has to identify where are you at in this process? Are you emotionally available? And it does. I mean, this, Cece and I were talking earlier, you have to really look at your past and see if your conversation is always bringing up a past relationship or a past something. You have to identify, I must still be hurt about that if I'm still constantly bringing it up to the forefront all the time. You have to see what things could be in your past that subconsciously you're not identifying that is keeping you from moving forward. So.
Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely true. And also, in my practice, many times I'll have to help someone with just some communication skills on how to be assertive. What are those tools and techniques perhaps they've never never really used them before. They've never learned them. And so that'll be a piece for someone else. For someone, it may be some self-esteem and some confidence building that we've got to look at. It may point out that in this one couple ahead of me, in front of me, there'll be somebody there that really doesn't have any empathy. And there are people here who have no empathy. And it may be, they may be narcissistic or have some other type of personality disorder. But with someone with no empathy, they're not going to be able to hear you and to recognize and to understand what it is that you need and to care.
Yeah.
And, and to be able to give that to you. So we're not going to be able to fix people like that in the relationship. We can't change people, but we may have to recognize that if this person can't give me what I want, again, I need to move on. And some of that seems to be the biggest problem for most people coming in to see me. Men and women have a hard time moving on.
Your heart gets involved.
Being able to let go.
Yeah, your heart gets involved, and you want to hang in there because, especially women, I know we tend to be like that, and we keep thinking, okay, well, maybe if we do this, we do that, they'll, really see us for who we are. But the reality is it's not about what we're doing and what we're trying to. The partner, it's the one that doesn't want to move forward. It's, I've often said, dating and relationships is a dance. You go back and forth, but you have to be listening to the same music, Yeah. And so I think a lot of times this, one that isn't ready for a commitment, they're not listening to the same music. We're not in the same tune. We're not in the same step. So
right.
Yeah.
So another interesting thing as well is that some people in my practice will actually admit to me, because they understand this point, that when we start talking about communication, they bring up, I don't know what my feelings are. I don't know how to label them. I don't know how to recognize them. I don't realize what I feel. And so sometimes the therapy, just for the individual therapy for this person, will be about trying to get in touch with their feelings and put words to them and understand that every feeling of distress, feeling distressed or feeling upset, is not just about anger. You may be hurt, you may be scared, you may be lonely, you may be frustrated, you may be confused, and you may be disappointed. There's so many more emotions. But some people have learned to turn it into anger because it's the only emotion that's acceptable to them or maybe to their family. Sometimes with men, many times with men, the only emotion that's acceptable for men to show. And so sometimes it's a matter of them really learning about that emotional part of their psyche.
Right. Well, I tell you, we're going to have to take a quick break. And I was wondering, do you mind, Linda, staying on the phone for just a moment longer?
Of course, I'll be happy to.
So we're going to take a quick break, and you're listening with Easy and Cece, and this is Affairs of Your Heart on liveandloveradio.com, and we'll be right back.
Formed in 2008, Tampa Bay Birth Network was started by a small group of dedicated birth professionals. The Tampa Bay Birth Network's primary mission is to provide a community of professionals, families, and individuals who support, educate, and/or promote natural pregnancy, birth, and parenting. This year's Natural Birth and Baby Expo is sponsored by the Talk Wide Network in association with Mama Bear Shares Talk Radio Show, and will be broadcasted live from the Largo Cultural Center on April 6th. We'll be showcasing our local birth centers, midwives, childbirth educators, natural baby retailers, photographers, family health resources, and much, much more. You don't want to miss this one-of-a-kind event. If you're interested in becoming part of this year's Natural Birth and Baby Expo, please visit us at TampaBayBirthNetwork.org. That's TampaBayBirthNetwork.org.
The west central coast of Florida has an amazing music scene. Festivals, clubs, special performances, and there's always a lot of live music. The problem has always been getting the word out about events. Then GoTonight.com emerged on the scene. The brainstorm creation of founder Don McKeon, a Sarasota entrepreneur. We caught up with Don and his inspirational friend, Frank Papa, at the Flying Dog Cafe.
This is Frank. I'm Don. Frank is the reason that there is a GoTonight.com. He would call me repeatedly.
Where are we going? Where do you want to go? Where will we go tonight?
The website has been a boon to many small clubs. So next time you find yourself asking, where will we go tonight? You've got the answer.
Good evening. This is Cece, and you're listening to Affairs of Your Heart on liveandloveradio.com. And you are also listening to Talkwad Network's studios, which is the most awesome studio here in the Tampa Bay area and surrounding areas. So with us tonight, Easy E, we have Linda Peterman, and it's Peatman. Is it Peatman?
No, Peterman. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. And she is a licensed counselor who has been practicing for 15 years, a specialty in her field out of West Chase here locally. And welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Let me just give our call-in number in case any guests have any calls they would like to make, and you maybe could possibly answer them for them. But our call-in number is 813-235-0644. We would love to have any opportunity to speak with any listeners out there. If you have any questions, call in. We would be more than happy to help you. Linda's here. And if you're having some dating challenges, just let us know what they are. Maybe we can solve them for you.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much. In the first half hour of the show, Linda, you provided some excellent information in that area. We really wanted people to understand those things about being able to identify emotional unavailability or things in their past. And I'm a proponent of people seeking counseling and seeking help to identify. But one of the things for me as a person, having gone through the dating arena like everyone else, I got to the point where it was clear to me that I needed to make some changes, some adjustments, or it was just going to be this continual treadmill of up and down, starts and stops. And I just felt that I was responsible for changing that. I had to look at what was going to be required to have a more successful relationship and change. As we get older, and we are in an older generation, we have to say, well, from here on out, we have to be in control of our own happiness and our own destiny. And I didn't want to spend the 5-6 years since my divorce. I didn't want to spend the next 5-6 years doing the same thing over and over. So I kind of seek some counseling and some help that really helped out. So I mentioned that to our listeners out there that may be a path that you want to take if you find yourself struggling in the same arena time and time again and things aren't changing. Perhaps you do need to talk to somebody like Linda that can help you bridge the gaps or identify some other things. As we wrap up, Linda, and don't want to take too much more of your time, could you give our listeners just what would you consider some identifying steps, some identifying traits within themselves that they could take a look at to see if if that's something that they need to improve or change as far as being emotionally unavailable in a relationship?
Well, I think what you said, first of all, Evie, was real important, is that we've got to all look at ourselves, and we've got to look at our past relationships and look for some patterns. Mm-hmm. And if we start to do the same thing over and over again, or start to choose the same type of partners over and over again, the same types of relationships, we know we're stuck in a cycle, and that's the perfect time to seek out some counseling, to find out where I'm going wrong. And that is the definition, of course, of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result.
Right.
And when people start to look at themselves, the things that they could try to focus on to determine if they are emotionally healthy and ready for a relationship is, again, back to the confidence. You want to make sure that you are a confident person who has self-respect, and you truly like who you are. Mm-hmm. You have to like who you are, love who you are, if you're going to want somebody else to love you and like you as well. And you want to be able to take care of yourself. And you will only be able to take care of yourself when you like who you are. And so then you will be able to stand up for yourself and let your partner know what you feel, what you want, what you need, what you desire, and truly be open and honest. And when you're open and honest with all of that with someone else, then they begin to trust you, and they know that you trust yourself. Mm-hmm. And that is when we are truly willing to self-disclose. And, of course, it's never good to self-disclose too much, too soon. We want our relationships to unfold naturally. We don't want to force it. We don't want to push it. We don't want to move those boundaries too quickly. But we want to be able to self-disclose on a normal, healthy basis. And we also want to make sure that we aren't a person, or we're not getting involved with someone who's too selfish. Sometimes we're selfish. There are times when we need to be selfish, but there's times in our lives where we're just selfish, that we have agendas, that we have something else that's a priority in our lives, and we're allowed to have that. Sometimes our career, for instance, could be the priority in our lives. Sometimes we have children that need us greatly at this time, and they may have to be a priority in our life. And so there's a time to be selfish, but if we're going to be selfish, we shouldn't be trying to find ourselves getting into a new relationship, because then we're not going to be able to listen well and take into account what our partner needs, and we're not going to be able to have that healthy, well-balanced, equal relationship.
Right.
Great.
Excellent information.
Yes, it is.
So, Linda, can you tell us how we can reach you? Make sure that we have all of your information, that listeners out there can reach you and get some counseling if they so feel they need that.
Oh, certainly. Thank you. Yes, you can reach me in Tampa at my office number is 813-404-3174. And I also have a website, www.counselingtampa, all one word, .com. So you can find all the information that you would need on my website, or you can call if you have further questions.
Great. Really appreciate the time. And we'll also put that on our website as well, how they can reach you and do some follow-up with you as well, and hopefully encourage some people to seek you out to have some one-on-one counseling, which I think would help a lot of our listeners. But
absolutely.
I do appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to be with us, and we'll talk to you sometime in the near future. And again, thanks for your support for our radio station.
Thanks, Linda.
Great. Thank you, Easy. Thank you, CC.
No problem. Thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
What an excellent guest.
Right.
She is just spot on. I mean, she is just an excellent, just wealth of information, and I just really appreciate her being on the show. Definitely we'll put the information. We're going to have our website up and running here shortly, and her information will be posted there. As with all the guests that appear on our show, we'll be able to be able to go to our webpage and look back at current guests, and past guests and know how to contact them. And please, if you're listening out there, if you contact any of our guests, let them know that you listen to them from the radio show, and I'm sure that they're going to treat you, with high respect and regard. So most certainly,
she had such a good mannerism and tone that you could tell she has a lot of wealth of experience and knowledge. You can really tell that, and that's one of the keys. I mean, that's we as far as I'm concerned hit a home run right out the box, because that's somebody that is really spot on, and having a wealth of experience in a lot of areas to help a lot of people. I mean, that's the key to more than what we can do with our radio show. We just want to point people in the right direction and get them the help that they need.
Absolutely. And you did a great job, because he does a lot of research and really puts his heart and soul into the show, and I appreciate that. And he came up with Linda, and I think Linda Peterman is just awesome. So certainly if you are in the need to talk to someone, most certainly give her a call, and she'll make a time for you. Let her know you heard us on the radio show, and she'll make sure she gets you in as quickly as she possibly can. So, But one thing I was thinking about the show, Easy, is Easy-E. I should say he's just easy because ladies he is, but But one thing I was thinking, it's not just about us being not unavailable, being not we don't want to make a commitment, we want to be unavailable, but it's also sometimes we are purposely choosing people that are not available. Because we still have a fear of maybe even commitment ourselves, so we purposely go out and date and choose people that we know are not right for us, and so this way we have an excuse to kick them to the curb, and it makes us feel better about ourselves because we weren't gonna we knew they weren't gonna be right for us anyhow. So if we find that we're continuously doing that, it harms us because it harms our heart. We have to be, if we're really looking to have a relationship with someone, we have to be open-hearted. We have to be open mind, open heart, and be able to explore. And just because you're out dating with someone doesn't mean he's going to be or she's going to be the end all. It just means you're moving through to that right person. So like the old saying, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to get the prince.
In the real world situation, the reality, and it goes across the board, men and women. I readily for several years, recently, I looked to find a relationship with somebody who I wanted a relationship with. There's still men, even in my age group, that really perceive just wanting to go find a woman to have sex, and women vice versa too. They're fed up with men, they're fed up with relationships, and so they're ready and willing to just I have somebody I just want to go have sex with, and those are people that we all run into them that are emotionally unavailable as well. So you have to decide what you truly want, and I looked at people strictly from a relationship point of view. And I've run into some that I felt were emotionally unavailable because their jobs and the yoga and the girlfriends and several things came before any discussion of when we could get together, or I had to find a spot to fit in those things. And that wasn't, I made a choice that wasn't acceptable to me.
Well, I can understand that and relate to that because, I have, we have both two shows. We have the Going Solo show and we have this, and Easy helps me with the Going Solo show too. So I want you to know that he's not out of the picture on that. And then we do a lot of research. We have, other outside interests and things like that we do. And I'm very busy. I'm a very busy person. But that doesn't mean that I'm not open to a relationship. I've chosen that I want to be in a relationship with someone. I've decided that's what I want. And I do think that that's where you have to be. You have to actually want that to be able to connect with somebody else. And I think that's what some of the problem is like, it is true we do let a lot of factors get in the way, but until you really honestly make that decision that you do want a relationship, you're not going to find one. Right, it's not going to happen for you. You're just going to keep moving through. So I think you have to choose to have a relationship, because to have a relationship with somebody is work. Even though it's work that you want to do, and it can be joyful work, but it is time and energy, and it is a bit of a devotion of yourself. And if you're not willing to give that, that's when you're really truly not available. Yeah. So it's a very interesting topic, and it's one that kind of sneaks up on you because sometimes you don't realize that you are the one that's not available. And then you sit back and you go, whoa, wait a minute here.
Yeah, I keep running into all these problems out here, without realizing maybe that's because you're taking those people on to be a problem because that's the way you want it to be.
Yeah, and I was talking to a guy I'm dating myself, and I was just talking to a guy about it, and then I realized, oh my gosh, he's probably going to think I don't have time for him, and I don't have this, and I have that. But, he would be important to me. And therefore, I'm going to make time. And I think it's just like anything that you think is a priority, you're going to make time for it. You're going to do it. You're going to want to do it. It's going to be a thing that, is right for you.
And it boils down to language, too. There's in the language of communication. Do you want to do something Tuesday? Well, no, I have to do A, B, and C Tuesday. But I am open on Thursday if you want to get together Thursday. Or you can just say, I'm not available Tuesday. And if somebody just says they're unavailable Tuesday, that means that they're not willing, at least at my point of view, they're not willing to take extra steps to show me that they still want to do something with me. it's like, well, what do I do? Pick another day. Well, how about Thursday? No, Thursday won't work either. I'm like, well, forget that.
Well, I mean, yeah, but life happens. Life does get in the way, and I think we shouldn't be too judgmental, with regards to that, because I mean, people do have very busy schedules. Doesn't mean they don't want to if you.
Well, they could make it if they wanted
right,
they could make an alternative
date. That's what you're saying. And you're right.
They have to make an alternative effort. Then I don't mind not being Tuesday if you make the effort to say, I have this time, or we could do something. Then I know the interest is there. If it's just you're not available, I don't know.
Right.
And like she says, we all feel vulnerable. So that statement says to me, oh, well, they're just not that interested, right or wrong. But
you should be upfront. I mean, I have canceled dates before myself, and I've said, look, I'm really interested, and I really do want to go out with you. I'm just not able to do it right now, or can we set another date, like you said, another date, or can I call you at such and such, and we'll schedule something out. So I think by letting them know that I am interested and I do want to go out with you, then I think
the communication piece,
that you should. But you know what? Sometimes I think people don't want to give too much away because they don't want to be vested. And sometimes you have to share your heart a little bit. You have to give away a little bit to be able to do that. So definitely.
And of course, don't get me wrong. Us men are notorious at it too. We're supposed to come over Saturday, and something comes up, and Sunday won't work, and we do.
And
the
then
same
you got
thing.
football, and then you got this, and then you got
and
that.
And if we don't set an alternative,
got to mow the lawn, got to weed the flower bed.
And if we don't set an alternative time, then that should tell you something too. If we don't say, well, I've got to do this Friday, and I'm tied up on Sunday, but we could. How about Wednesday? You just check your calendar for Wednesday. If we don't make that extra step, it should say something to you, because I think it's all in the subconscious on how we are really feeling about something that comes out in our words.
Absolutely, yeah. So. And you're right. I think you are very right, and we are very similar, men and women. Ooh, if I could speak it, in certain ways, we are very similar. We all do have emotions and feelings, and so. It's just it really boils down to communication and understanding ourselves. And I think Linda was really cool.
Yeah, she really was. So our up-and-coming shows, we're going to keep on the same format and get into some of the dating and relationship issues. We've got topics scheduled for people, some of the do's and don'ts in dating, some other things that you can identify. We're going to get what was the one you mentioned, the step up or the...
Yeah, where you do the, what did I call it? I call it a...
Step up. The
people
trading
up. That you're trading up.
Right.
Have you ever been in a relationship where, the guy or the gal has their foot out, you feel like they got their foot out, and they're looking for something better.
They don't remove their profile from the dating sites,
right.
is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, with regards to that, we should talk about that too, but we'll talk about that on the show. Right. But you're always feeling like they want to trade up. They think there's something out there better, and I think that's an excellent show. Like, when do you get off the dating site? When do you stay on while you're dating? Right. There's a lot of do's and don'ts with regards to that people think, and so I think that's an excellent topic. So maybe we should do that next week if you want.
Yeah, we could tackle that, because that's that. If you're dating someone, it's the indication. I know the agreement I got is we would take our profiles off or stop, or you can hide them or whatever you need to do. But nobody wants to be dating somebody and they happen to, of course, they must be on the dating site too.
Save it for the show. They
might be on the dating site too and see so-and-so's on one of the dating sites at 11 o'clock at night or something. But,
right, and then we have us, working with regards to dating, and then trying to date ourselves, and they're thinking, well, gosh, or doing all this stuff in dating, and then our potential partners get a little bit wigged out.
So we're going to go there with that type of show for next week. We want to thank our listeners today, and be sure to tell your family and friends about our show. We'll be here every Sunday, 5:30 to 6:30 on WWW Live and Love Radio. And also the rebroadcast of this show as well as our past shows are going to be available on that website as well. Click on Affairs of Your Heart, and you'll see a listing for past shows. And we're even also going to have our shows available on YouTube as well in the very near future. So
yes, we've
got exciting things going on. We've got an expo coming up with Talk What Studios. So
yes, come out and join us. That'll be live. And then Easy E and I are starting to plan some outside events that we're going to be doing, and we're hoping to bring Affairs of Your Heart live to those. And so we'd like for you all to join us with that. And we've got some really cool things going to be happening. So definitely stick around and listen as much as you can.
Right. So until we reach you again next Sunday at 5:30, this is Easy.
And this is Cece.
We'll see you at Affairs from Your Heart. Good evening.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to TalkWad.com, the world's fastest growing internet radio network. Please check out all the other great shows on www.talkwad.com.